I taunt, I ring, he walks into the ring, I pop shoes, and I stun. Right there, 3, 2, 1, silence now. When it is at 50% to 40%, that's the best time to call for a silence. Hands down all the time. But you guys saw just how quick that can go. That reaction time needs to be there, and you need to be able to call it. Now, if I pop food and I have CC abilities, like I don't have CC on my chest piece, I have defense, right? These are things that you could modify. My shoes, you have the sturgeon and you have the sandwich. These are all things that you can all do to optimize the duration of your stun. Some people need more defensives because the A3 mobs hit hard. Some people need more CC just so that they can one-shot it and not do 2 rotations. Traditionally, what you're going to want to do for a rotation, what most people taught me meta-wise is to do the Great Arcane, the stun, the silence, and then from there, you might want to go stun, silence, Great Arcane. You're depending on how much spec, the tier of the Great Arcane, and if they know how to step in someone else's Royal Jack and Obelisk, and if they even have food pops, so many different factors can go on. But that is the safest way because your one-hand Arcane has Assassin Hood, and he's going to be there in time after another stun. But you can't call 2 back-to-back. You can't go Great Arcane, stun to stun, silence to silence, because you do have cooldowns. So another thing when pulling mobs, recognizing a mob, I'm not using my armor ability, I'm using taunt. So in theory, you can use any type of plate armor to do raids. The same applies with shoes. You do not need shoes. What a lot of people do to compensate is they go higher tier Larrikin and a higher tier Hammer, and they go. I like to go 8-1 beef sandwich when I lead 8-1 Avas. It's just a really, really nice staple. Why cheap out on food? You guys know how effective food is. But also the manner in which you pull mobs. There's specific pulls in the dungeon where you cannot just pull the nearest mob. You cannot pull the mob that makes the most actual sense. Sometimes, in order for me to pull Unfocused, I have to run all the way past Legendary Bacon and pull this rock mob over here just to get Unfocused aggro the way that I want to get the perfect pull. And you're with practice and learning and experiencing it, you're gonna see. And usually these pulls are associated with the archers in some way, shape, or form, or the laser priestess, not the priestess that heal, but the Avalonian spellweavers.
Yeah.
It's the angle in which you pull them, and also the distance in which you bring them, because there are a few mobs out there. For example, the Avalonian, the shieldman, he has to bash his shield 3 times before he pushes, right? So you can wait. I can aggro Unfocus, walk a few steps. Now he starts walking towards me because he banged his shield 3 times, and now he walks into the ring. And that is an effective countermeasure to getting that done, right? But if I pop my ring too early, by the time the shieldman gets to the ring will have dissolved, and it'll be for nothing. Then I'm gonna have to leash the pool or find a way to fix it and rig it. The fun part of learning how to Avalonian raid lead the wrong way is leashing things constantly over and over and over again until you get them right. If you half-ass the pull and you don't one-shot the pull, you are going to have a bigger headache, because now, if I one-shot this rock mob because I wanted to pull and focus without pulling Legendary Bacon into the pull, but I killed the rock mob, now I'm going to have to do a bigger pull that may need to be done 4 to 5 times. You guys know, like in the roads, for example, how on some of those golden chests you have 3 mobs, and if you kill one mob, now every time I try to kill a second mob because we couldn't finish it the first time, I aggro the boss and shit. And now it's like it's one big clusterfuck of a pull, and we have to just kill one mob and leash, kill one mob and leash. That it's better to do the pull right. A lot of the time, your DPS, because they're racing, because they're mongoloids, or they're monkeys and apes, they just say, hey, I just want to kill the mob. It's slow. Let me kill the mob. Sometimes it's better to just let the mob live and do the pull right. If you do the pull right, you don't have to do the pull 10 times. If you do it right once, you don't got to repeat it over and over. That's going to come with experience and practice. Another thing to look at, I'm switching to Great Arcane. I'm dueling Unfocused. Let me duel you Unfocused.
Go. Say that again.
I sent it. Did you get it?
There.
I'll dual bacon then if you're not. Oh, there it is. Okay. Now remember, for PvP, these CC abilities do not last as long as they do on mobs, right? Just like your Iron Roots, your Great Arcane is a cooldown based thing. You never ever have to have them on damage passives, kind of like my shoes are. You don't need damage increase. It's a Great Arcane. It doesn't do damage. It's meant to CC. But that doesn't mean that you put it on CC shoes the way that I have it. You can put on Refreshing Sprint and the last boot passive Quick Thinker so that you can optimize your Great Arcane to always have cooldowns. Because as a Great Arcane, I want to hit the Great Arcane on the mobs to get the most value in the clump. I want to use my Royal Jacket, my shoes, and then my Assassin Hood so that I can get maximum value. And while I'm Assassin Hooding in an Obelisk, and I'm making sure I'm in other groups' Royal Jackets as much as I can. So now I'm going to hit Unfocused really quick with a Great Arcane, and we're going to pay attention to the debuff that's on top of them. And then I'm going to call my Silence. I'm going to call my debuffs. When I call debuffs, that's when I would, in theory, use my stun. Great Arcane now. Stun debuffs.
That's actually really fast.
It's similar fast to using the hammer. It's quick. But you notice how there's 2 circles above me, right? The first one keeps me frozen. The second one, not so much. So there's going to be 2 circles there. The second one is like an immunity to time freeze. That's the one that you don't want to get confused with. You see what I'm saying? So there's going to be 2 circles. You have to identify it. It's going to be longer on mobs. You don't have to worry too much about that. And your Great Arcanes are going to be on omelets, most likely. But I'm going to throw it again. Great Arcane. Debuff silent. Debuffs. And then we have the hammer. You see the hammer. Silence now at 50% of the hammer to be safe. I like to push it to the very last second. I like to push it at 20% because I'm a mongoloid. But most people don't need to. Your Great Arcane, his main focus is to mimic a frost. He mimics a frost, and that is going to give him his own obelisk. Becomes a skill-based kind of thing. You have any questions so far on any of this, guys?
No, it's more a timing thing than anything.
All of it is in timing. It's first in the pool and the trajectory and the angle. It's the distance in which I pop my boots. And then second to that, it's managing other people's cooldowns. So now that I hit the Great Arcane, you don't have... Can you equip the hammer for me, Bacon? So because I can kind of time off of experience how to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to Great Arcane and Focus. I'm going to call for hammer. I'm going to call stun, debuff stun, and then I'm going to call the silence immediately after. And this is what a rotation is going to sound like. Great Arcane, debuffs, late, silence in 3, 2, 1 now, silence on the clump, silence on the Spellweaver, and the silence needs to be more specific, because if Unfocus is my mob and my silence is standing this far away, remember, with this one-hand arcane, I'm going to leave the duel. With the one-hand arcane, there is travel time, and that travel time is enough to get your party wiped, because as you saw, that Great Arcane wears off real fucking quick, and so does the stun real quick, especially if you don't have foods in the right conditions. However, with the one-hand arcane, things change drastically, right? It's a way different ball game. I don't have to worry as much because the one-hand arcane is purge and it's also a silence. So this is where your healers and your one-hand arcane, he's gonna be using guardian armor most likely, and assassin hood. I didn't bring an assassin hood with me because we're only practicing 1 rotation today. But we do the Great Arcane. I do the stun. The silence needs to be close to the mob. I like to have my silence. I'm like, hey, silence, focus on this next bowl. Focus on silencing the big Avalonian priestess or the Spellweaver, because the priestess will heal them. The Spellweaver will give them a hard time and hurt everybody. So if Unfocus is my mob, after I start the rotation, my silence needs to be here. When I call silence, he needs to pop shoes. He needs to use his E, and then he has to use his jacket, which I don't have the guardian armor ability on me, but that's okay. That guardian armor ability is going to stop everybody from taking damage, because you will be taking damage.
I hear the C call in Feeble quite a bit. And Feeble, Silence, stuff like that.
And that's the thing. That's for like beginner players that need to be taught, and it's a good habit as a raid leader to call, hey, use your people aura, because without hesitation, every single time your one hand silence needs to pop his shoes for extra duration. Because if you hover over the E, you'll notice that silence is yellow, and yellow is associated with crowd control, and your boots with the rush ability on increase your crowd control duration.
Interesting.
Yes, so we'll test it out. I will keep my stun. I'll keep my boots on, with my, and I'll put CC passive on my armor, and you cannot do that, and we'll see who stuns who longer. Just for science, just so you could see. It also could also be spec thing too, but that's not too big of a deal. So you're gonna use your E, and I'm gonna look at the debuff on my screen. Go for it. I'm gonna count down. 3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, almost 3 seconds. Right now, what I do? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Almost 4. So
And
that's
that's
what they
just
mean by short silence. Okay.
short silence is when somebody doesn't have the right passives on. And keep in mind, I didn't even use my food. My sturgeon gives me 10% more CC, and that's on a player. Imagine how long the duration is on an opponent, or I mean, on a mob.
Mob.
It's
Yeah.
going to be twice as long. So we're looking at unfocused. Now we have our Great Arcane, we have our stun, we have our silence, and now I'm going to go back into stun. So Great Arcane, stun, silence now, debuffs, Great Arcane, silence, and you can mix it back and forth from there. But if you're not killing things in 2 rotations, there's something wrong with the pool, or there's something wrong with DPS, ultimately. Now,
Actually, that's a difference. Okay.
some Avas move really, really quick, and your shoes may not be up. Maybe mismanagement of cooldown. Maybe you skip an assassin hood because you're greedy and you're too busy looting. You have to account for a lot of the human errors that can go into an Ava. It's gonna happen. People are gonna fuck up. That's why, as a raid leader, you notice, okay, I'm looking at, you guys see what the debuff bar looks like on Unfocused. Look, you see what the silence looks like. It's big purple, now it's gone. It's going to be a little bit longer on a mob, but okay, the silence is going really, really quick. That's when your stun is an emergency reaction. And then you call the Great Arcane after the stun duration, because you can only CC a mob so many times before it gets resilience. And after 2 rotations, your stuns and your silences won't do anything. Because we don't have a healer, this is going to be a little bit difficult, but we're going to go out and we're going to practice with what we got. Bring 1 Avalonian beef sandwich, bring a sturgeon, and invis pot since we don't have a healer. Have a swap for the the healing staff in your inventory. We're going to go pop a flat 6 Avamap that I already bought. The flat 6 Avamaps. How do you determine a group map from an Avamap? If you're shopping, you have to type in large dungeon. Or that's what I like to do. Large map, large dungeon, and if it says large group, that means that it's meant to be done with more than 7 people. Now, we don't need the royal jackets for this, even though they're nice, but you could also bring yourself a flat 4 assassin hood. If you want to bring the royal jacket, you can. If not, you can flip it on the black market. I'm going to bring one anyways, since you guys are going to be practicing back and forth, but these are just things to consider.
And I already have. Okay.
Yep, I'm also going to bring a T6 repair table.